Well, hello, furniture people. I'm Joe, and I like refinishing old furniture. Somehow I decided it would be a good idea to film this and share it, so here we are, turning grit into gold. Hope you enjoy the process of me working on these items. I really like trying to return things to a state of usefulness and beauty rather than pitching them into a landfill. So this is an interesting project to work on for me. It was far more challenging than I ever imagined. And it ultimately involves two chairs, this rocker, and this rocker is what is called an American Heritage Boston rocker. These were produced in the mid 1800s. Oh, there's a nice shot of my ceiling. Sorry about that. Um, and they were very characteristic in terms of having that stenciling on the backrest, very thin spindles going up the middle, also some stenciling on the seat usually, the very thin rockers down on the bottom, which when I first looked at them, I was kind of thinking, how can those possibly support somebody? But I've sat in this rocker many times and they're perfectly wide enough. They work great. And then also that very characteristic sweep where the back of your knees would go when you're sitting in it. It's a very comfortable, very functional chair in many, many ways. So I picked it up in a restore, and my original goal involved doing everything I could to, I guess, restore the visibility of the stencils as much as I possibly could. And I started a journey with this, and I decided before I really went into pouring any chemicals or doing anything on the Boston Rocker that I would pick up a chair that is of similar age. And this chair, I'm going to call it my experiment chair for right now. And it's a contemporary to the Boston Rocker. There's no maker's mark on it or anything where I can really identify its age, but it's going to be roughly in that same 150-ish year old range. So, this is a very cool chair with some spindles. And here I was experimenting with a few different things to see what would best and most smoothly remove the old alligator varnish or lacquer that's on it. And the answer is the very simple chemical denatured alcohol, also known as white gas, and the stuff that you would pour in a lantern, or you can pick it up in any home improvement store. It really worked really well, and even on this experiment chair now, just and you'll see better pictures of it as we go through. But just look at how that wood grain pops now that you can actually see through the varnish um, better than you could before. I worked with this over the majority of this chair, as well as the Boston Rocker. And here on the seat, it went from having that, in an earlier shot, you can see a big old white stain where it's evident that, some water puddled or whatever on it. Um, as I cleaned it up, the whole thing just turned out beautifully. And I oiled the wood some to restore some moisture to it. But again, this chair is also, from a physical perspective, is in wonderful shape, and uh, it holds me up. We've been using it in our house, and the beautiful wood grain, again, it's just so gorgeous on there. So my application method on the rocker itself was to take cuttings from t-shirts, and as a way to hold the denatured alcohol, which is obviously just it isn't sticky or goopy like lots of varnish removers are, you know, chemically set up to, you know, gel and sit in one spot. So that's what that t-shirt is about. And I put the t-shirt down, pour some of the denatured alcohol onto it, let it sit for a couple of minutes, and basically see where it comes, where it takes us. And for for the most part, and this is where this project was, it was a little hard for me because I had really high hopes on having those stencils really pop. And uh, chemically, they, to some extent, and the different pigments that are in them, either tolerated the denatured alcohol just fine or did not. Particularly, I was very elated, as you'll see in a few seconds here. I put a still in here that shows this backrest after I finished this part of it. And there really was some progress. And, even here right now, you can see some of the stencils in the middle much better. You can see a bear, and there's a goose on one side, and there's a fox. There's a fox on there too. And I was dabbing around here a little bit, just trying to pick off um, some of the um, goop from the old varnish that was on there. And that's another camera that I'm playing around with, experimenting with. Didn't include any of the shots in here from that camera. Um, and the so it really did work nicely, and I used it pretty extensively on the experiment chair. And on the Boston Rocker, it helped with the seat of the chair and how those stencils show up. There's some flowers on there and whatnot. And the flowers on the wings of the backrest here um, are more visible, but I think the pigments used in uh, the animals on here were, of a different composition or a different density or whatever it might be. And those did not turn out well. The best they looked was in, as I said, a still shot here in a moment. As I get done putzing with the camera, this was about as good as it got. That's the still shot right there. And after it dried, the visibility of those really went away. It was a light application of denatured alcohol for just a couple of minutes, and um, it did remove the varnish, and it took off some of the stenciling. This was disappointing. It wasn't something I never want to harm a piece of furniture. None of us that do this want to see it happen, see it harmed. So the best I can take out of this is that I learned something, and I can hopefully pass it on here. And the shot, there's a little bit of lighting glare there, but especially on the right hand side of the screen, you can see some of the stenciling again. It doesn't look too bad. The rest of it's too glary. Didn't catch that in production, but that's how that ended up in that part of it. So don't beat me up too hard in the comments as you see this and as you look at it. Middle just sort of disappeared is what happened. So I sanded down the armrests, cleaned them up, cleaned up the rest of the Boston Rocker, and did the best I could with it. And sealed up the remaining stencils, and they'll be there for a while, at least to the extent that they are. So this is the experiment chair, and the rear right leg had a crack in it. And what somebody had done at some point, what I'm gluing right now, this is separated at an earlier time. And just to the right of where my hand is, someone ran a screw through that leg, that front leg, and into that support, that lateral support there. Um, probably to correct um, for that crack in the back leg. So I pulled the screw out, used my little reverse clamp there to um, pry the base of the chair apart, and now I'm turning the clamp around to reclamp it now that it's glued, put it all together, and as I get into the rest of the repair on this, it actually turned out very nicely. Those clamps are infinitely useful. You only need a few of them. You get them different lengths, but pulling things together, pushing things apart, they're invaluable for things like this on chairs or squaring up dresser drawers, for example, things like that. I use them all sorts of ways. So they're a great tool to have. Tighter shot. So here in the back of the chair, and that is the rear of the, it's the back of the rear leg on the right hand side. And right above where I have that green tape, you can see where that crack is. And what I'm doing here is marking it with the green tape, and then I marked a depth on my drill, on that drill bit. That's what the green tape is on the drill bit. I only want to go in about a half an inch. And then I cut a piece of dowel to length, which I will insert, add a little glue, insert the dowel, official cleaning there. And that dowel is going to do a very nice job holding that original leg together. Um, the, the chair, like I said, I've been using this chair too, as well as the rocker, and it holds together just fine. It's perfectly stable with this repair. And it's also, it creates little things like that. You, you could go ahead and, I could go ahead and try and remake an entirely new leg, try and match it for the whole chair, and stuff like that. It'd take a lot of time. It'd be relatively, it'd be a fair amount of work to do it, to get the curve right, get it to match up. And it also eliminates a little bit of history on that, on the chair. And, who knows who was sitting in it when it cracked, but somebody did, and then someone else took it and repaired it, and it's part of the history. And now here I am repairing it again. And with that little nub sticking out, no damage to the underlying wood. The actual chair, and took a saw and trim the nub down flush with the rest of the chair. A little bit blurry there, but you get the idea. And then cleaned it up and stained it. And it's the kind of repair that as you make your way through this, no one is ever really going to notice. They'd really have to examine the chair very, very tightly to ever see or notice that repair. So I'm very, very pleased with that. I'm very pleased with the chair. It's a cool old chair. It's got those nifty wing tips on the backrest, and the cool curved wood that you see right there, and nice spindles. So here are the two chairs, one guy. See some of the stenciling there again, and what survived. And again, I'm not happy with the result. If I ever come on one of these chairs again, I'm very different approach. Be simple cleaning with water and very little of that, just to reveal the extent of the stencils that I could. I even thought about painting brand new stencils. I didn't want to do that either. Didn't like that idea. So in any case, difficult project, wasn't easy. Not really fully happy with the end result, but it is what it is. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Um, I can keep doing stuff like this and having fun with it. And I am on to the next project now. Stay safe and be healthy, everyone, and I hope you have a fantastic day.